Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics live on Trust TV, your go-to destination for all things politics, policy and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Welcome to the program. Tonight, tensions rise within the Arewa Consultative Forum following controversial comments made by its National Executive Committee Chairman, Mike Usman, who claimed that the forum would support a northern candidate or northern candidates in the 2027 elections. While the statement didn't make it into the official communique at its meeting in Kaduna, it has sparked an internal rift, resulting in Usman's suspension and raising questions about cracks within the Arewa Consultative Forum. We'll also examine the NEC's recent resolutions, which includes criticism of the economic hardship in the country caused by the Tinubu administration's reforms and what they call the government's actions harmful to the North's progress. Well, to help us unpack and dimension some of these issues, we will be joined by the Arewa Consultative Forum's National Publicity Secretary, Professor Tukur Muhammad Baba, will be joining us virtually from Kaduna. And of course, we will also have other participants to join the conversation, starting with Nurudeen Hammanyero, is of course a politician and a public affairs commentator. He's here with me in the studio to help dimension some of these issues that, of course, focus not just on developments in the northern part of the country, but also a reflection of developments at the national level. Good evening to you, Honorable, and thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. It's good to see you.
Good evening, Tukur.
Right. First of all, let's start with the commotion with the Arewa Consultative Forum. As a northerner yourself, how do you react to what made the news yesterday when the understanding was that this was the position of the forum up until today's suspension of the chairman of the NEC, Mike Usman, and now we understand that that was his personal position, so to say, that clamored the entire position of the forum. But what do you make of the confusion, first of all, and the messaging from the Arewa Consultative Forum?
Yeah, first of all, I applaud the Arewa Consultative Forum as a pan-northern socio-cultural organization that seeks, to query, and it is our right that being elders, being people we look up to in the northern Nigeria, being the highest body of that kind of organization that we look up to as northerners, whenever there is a challenge, they speak up and mediate between the northern Nigeria and the federal government. It is what they are doing, querying the federal government because of the hardship, that is meted on the entire country, not only the northern Nigeria, but first of all, they are speaking from a very important angle, which is we are northerners. And our culture has always been, we are herders, we are farmers. But today, we can't even go to the farm. We can't even rear our cattle or do anything around herding. And our people are dying of hunger. So telling the federal government what is happening is not going well. Is a laudable, initiative, and it should be, everybody should commend them for what they have done. However, on the issue of what Maman Usman said, has he acted on his own, just like the way the chairman of the board of trustees, Bashir Alatu, said they have suspended him because he acted on his own alone? Nobody can tell you, was there a discussion before that? Were the media in the discussion when it was happening, was it covered? If the Arewa Consultative Forum is now suspending the next chairman because of what he has said to me, let's keep the Arewa Consultative Forum aside. Let's treat Usman, first of all, as an individual. Yes, you can't treat him in isolation because he is holding on to a very sensitive position, and whenever he makes a statement, that statement must be connected to his position. That is important. However, I look at it that what he has said is something that is ringing a bell on virtually everybody that is suffering today in northern Nigeria. So if he said it, he might be wrong. At the same time, he might be right. But is this the right time to say it? No, what is right now? What is right now? And this is like a challenge for me as a northerner, for me as a politician growing up and looking up to some of those elder statesmen, particularly in the ACF, you know, and looking at what their predecessors have done in the past. And now that they have been challenged with this situation, what we expect from them, first of all, first and foremost, is to even keep the center aside. Talba, we have a lot of issues surrounding the northern Nigeria, and what are our state governors doing? Is my biggest question, and I keep asking that because
isn't that part of the problem?
I want you to understand when the southwestern governors were threatened with insecurity during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, you saw what they did. They came together, had a very good, you know, initiative about security, and they came up with Amatekun. And you can see, because they are so proud of the security architecture, you know, they have given birth to. In the Ondo State gubernatorial debate between Ajayi and Ayedatiwa, the security aspect of it took the larger time because they were all dissecting the Amatekun as a security architecture in the southwest and how it is doing very well. That now they are even trying to expand it by bringing another component of the Amatekun, which they call Amatekun Rangers.
Yeah. Now, isn't that part of the problem? That while the Arewa Consultative Forum appears to be pandering to an already established sentiment in the country that things are not working, everybody is pretty much saying it right now. And we are well familiar with how some of these groups could just piggyback or join the bandwagon of what is popularly being said across the country. Not that they don't have their own opinions, but you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the governors, for instance, and that is something that is missing in their assessment of the state of affairs, because we do know that there are former governors within the ranks of the ACF, and that might explain why they're very silent about the subnational 19 northern states could easily come together and solve more than half the problem that the ACF is talking about today.
Mr. Talba, I want to see the Arewa Consultative Forum challenging our northern governors, particularly with respect to their expenditure, you know, what they receive from federal government allocation with their internal generated revenue. How are they spending it? Because people are hungry. There is nothing going on in the north. Now, look at the insecurity in the northwest. A lady in Sokoto State, I think is her name, is it Badia or Rabia, that made a statement around insecurity in Sokoto State, that was beaten and stabbed, arrested by some of the aides of Governor Aliyu. You know, if the Arewa Consultative Forum will live up to its responsibility and stand for the North, then we should be seen. They should be seen to be checking the excesses of the state governors first. Then with that, they have a moral justification to check the center. Because if you can't check your governors, if you cannot challenge your governor in any of the northern states to ensure that he is making judicious use of the resources, mind you, as much as personally as an APC card-carrying member and a chieftain, most at times I query the policies that get somersaulted every day in this our government, and I want to see things being corrected. However, I always want to look at it side by side, how much money state governors are receiving in this current administration. Much money, but what have they been doing with it, particularly in the north? Particularly in the north, we have the worsening educational system, and it's the same thing the Arewa Consultative Forum is discussing. The insecurity and everything you want to talk about the north, there is nothing holding, Mr. Talba. So I think the ACF should go back to its drawing table, first of all, call our governors, publish your scorecard. What have you done in the past 2 years? For those that were governors and today they are in the forum, they should be ashamed of themselves because some of them have not done anything. And if they don't have the moral ground to look at these governors and tell them what they are doing is wrong, then they should shut up. You know, but again, what I'm trying to say is this: the current leadership of the Arewa Consultative Forum should come back to the table, Mr. Talba, check the excesses of our governor. We have the North is supposed to feed itself sufficiently. We are supposed to feed ourselves sufficiently. Go back to my state. there's a particular region in my state that is the agricultural hub of Adamawa State. For Fintiri, Ahmed Fintiri, 6 years, today going to 7 years in government, he has not even attended to the region, let alone utilize the agricultural potential the region has. Not to talk of, making it of advantage to the northeast or to Nigeria at large. But look at what Bago is. Yes, of course, there are governors that are doing very well. They should be emulated. But ACF should please, yes, Tinubu is not doing well. We cannot discuss Tinubu. We cannot discuss Tinubu and forget what our governors are doing.
So charity begins at home.
Charity begins at home.
I get that point. Two things. The National Economic Council, we understand that the Nigeria Governors Forum have also given their take on the ongoing reforms. They say, listen, this is going to usher in a new dynamic that will be beneficial to the country. And you get a sense that the governors are on board with whatever is going on, regardless of how they might have their personal opinions about certain legislations, like they have their disagreements about the tax reforms that the Tinubu administration is going. But generally speaking, it appears that they are on board with what the administration is trying to get done. Give me your take on how we can address this issue, especially from a standpoint of a group such as the Arewa Consultative Forum. I mean, its reputation, its track record, the caliber and the quality of the people within the forum itself speaks volume. But how do we dimension this issue without that element of politicization, which is the controversy that we are also talking about today, about the 2027 general election? Because as I said yesterday, a lot of people thought that was the official position of the Arewa Consultative Forum, that they have decided it will be a northern candidate that will enjoy their support in 2027. How do we dimension this issue without the politics, messing things up?
First of all, I want you to look at it this way. This tax reform issue, standing from the point of whatever it is that is generated and given to the center, the allocation should not be based on how you have contributed, because there is a dire need, by the citizens of this country all over, across both the 37 states, and sometimes one would tend to lean on the other. We have not yet developed to that extent. We have not yet maximized, our mineral resources. We have not yet grown up to that level that we say state can be independent, or whatever you get should be proportionate to how much you have contributed. If the Arewa Consultative Forum will stand and fight and ensure that what is duly allocated to the northern state is fair, that will be commendable, and that is okay. The issue of the 2027, let's allow the situation to define itself. 2027, we still have 2025. We still have 2026. Yes, of course, effective period of governance, Talba, is just next year, the 12 months we have. The moment we are in 2026, politics of 2027 have started. However, we should allow so that we don't tend to hit, the atmosphere and deviate from what we are supposed to do, because we see how politicking is affecting governance.
Do you think that is a good negotiating tactics to force the hand of the administration, especially the president, to pay more attention, for instance, to the concerns raised by some of the northern stakeholders?
They are just speaking from the northern point of view, but this is a concern that is general. It's all over the country. The president should not only look at it from the northern point of view. Of course, if our southern counterpart decide to keep quiet, that will be looked at as a conspiracy from their own end. However, they are suffering because nobody will sell a bag of rice for 40,000 in Lagos State because the president is from Lagos. You understand? The same way we are buying in the north, they might even buy it, get it higher. Nobody will sell energy at a cheaper rate at the southwest because the president is from there. So when something is happening that borders around the economy and is affecting the generality, we should look at it from that point of view and not with sentiment. Yes, you will never separate politics from governance. It's a natural thing, but we should be very, very objective. And that is why I was telling you, look at how politicking has, affected River State. The governor has completely been confused since he has been inaugurated. He can't do anything because he is always, overwhelmed with reconciliation, how to balance himself. He has not done anything. And if care is not taken, this man will be cheated. 4 years will end and he will not do anything. So let's allow it. The president knows he has given a lot of promises to Nigerians. If you want to sit down and discuss the Tinubu administration side by side, the manifesto or promises he has made, 2025 is around the corner. He said it about energy, that he will give adequate energy to Nigeria. He will stabilize. I remember I saw the National Security Advisor making a statement that by 2025 they will stabilize the naira. They will ensure that energy will be sufficient and affordable. He made this statement. So, benefit of the doubt, I'm not completely in support to what they are saying. I'm not completely in support. Yes, it's good we should be checking what the Northern Consultative Forum is doing, Arewa Consultative Forum is doing, is to check these excesses of government.
I'm happy you mentioned the NSA, because that is a part of the equation that a lot of people are trying to solve, to say that you have prominent members of the administration like a Malam Nurudeen, for instance, who, according to our understanding, has the ear of the president, is very influential, and he spoke highly about the reforms of the president during a recent event here in Abuja, where he spoke about the sort of ability of the president to solve all the problems that Nigeria is dealing with, whether it's insecurity, whether it's the economy, and everything else that the masses are concerned about. And then you have a group like the Arewa Consultative Forum groan, moan, complain, and gave a very critical assessment of the state of affairs. And you wonder, where is the disconnection there between the northern stakeholders who are, or at least people of northern extraction who are in the government and their perspective about the developments of the country, and those who are outside of the government but are giving their commentary about what the government is doing or how the government is unable to manage the well-being of the people?
Instead of the disconnection you're talking about, I would choose to be looking at where is the harmony, because federal government, the Minister of Agri is a northerner. The state governors in their various states, 19 states, are not southerners. They are northerners, Talba. And I would never want to be discussing governance in Nigeria. Like I said earlier, I'm not in support totally with what the federal government is doing. I disagree with so many things. But again, I don't want to forget about what the state government should be doing, because resources come to the state government. And if now that rainy season have ended, harvest is taking place, and a bag of rice now in the market, how do I call it, the one that is not peeled,
in paddy, right?
Yes, is 50,000. This is November. A bag of maize is 70,000. That means in last year, this time around, when harvest was taking place, a bag of rice was 25,000 Talba. A bag of maize was around 40,000. It means in February, March of 2025, if care is not taken, we are going to buy a bag of rice for 200,000 in Nigeria. Our governors should be careful. What arrangements are they making to fight, ensure that these things don't get to happen? Because already the insecurity we are talking about is because there is nowhere, the government is not felt at any level. At any level, people are not feeling government. And we have resorted to self-help. What can I do for myself to survive? And that is why the issue of insecurity is still high, because you don't feed a man, you can't tell him what to do, he chooses what to do. So for me, I choose to look at how has the state governors helped the policies of the federal government, or complemented to ensure that they have made agricultural activities easy for their citizens, for their indigenes in the state, and consequently that will now improve, on the food sufficiency we are talking about by 2025, and make things affordable for everyone. So if they cannot talk about that, it means we are wasting our time, because the president cannot do everything. I'm not supporting everything, like I said, what he is doing. But state governors, what are they doing with our resources? If we want to check the president, if we want to check, I want to see the Arewa Consultative Forum in the next 1 month before December ends, should demand the northern state governors roll out their scorecard, what they have done from the day they are sworn into office in June last year. Now, what have they done with the resources they have?
So this past week, we got hold of a report that broke down what happened in the first 2 quarters of this year about poverty alleviation, where we understand 15 state governments in the north have spent a little over 45 billion trying to address poverty, mitigate it, and so on and so forth, with all the grants, with all the funds that have been pumped into those states from the federal, from international organizations, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the report, you get a sense that it has been ineffective at best, below par. It has underperformed because poverty is still soaring. Poverty is still a very predominant problem in northern Nigeria. And do you feel like when a group like the Arewa Consultative Forum comes across, even though there is validity to the argument that they're making about how things are not working, how the government is underperforming, and so on and so forth, do you think that a critical assessment would mean we start state by state from the northern region, fix the home front before we accuse the center or the president, for that matter, of not giving the north adequate attention?
Of course, that is what is expected from them, because, and okay, now I saw it somewhere, October, the last month, the Adamawa state government received 6-point-something billion naira federal allocation. Now, if you want to ask the question, what has Governor Ahmadu Fintiri done? Do you know that in Adamawa State, I'm telling you this without a doubt, 6 years of Fintiri's government. Okay, take it back from 1999, 25 years, we don't have a pipe-borne running water system inside the Adamawa State capital.
Same could be said about most of the northern states, actually.
Now, and if that is the
case,
if
not the entire country.
Now, if that is the case, no, first of all, treat your home. Like you said, let's fix the home front before we check what the center is supposed to do. You know? And that is why I think one of the constitutional, Ben Waboze said one of his regret was to give more power to the center. Before he died, he wished he can rewrite that, you know? Now, if we can't check our governors, and that is why we have allowed governors today.
Are you saying we can't? Because that is what is
we have demonstrated it. We have demonstrated it, but governors have destroyed traditional institutions in northern Nigeria. They have destroyed it. Look at what is happening in Kano State. Look at what has happened in Sokoto State. Look at what is happening in Adamawa State. With the dwindling economic situation we are having, that people can't feed themselves, the governor is busy forming what do you call it, other emirates that would demand for more resources from the state government when he can't even support the ordinary citizen to put food on the table. So I think what we should be doing is, we have local government employees union, we have student union, we have other unions in the government, farmers and whatsoever and whatever. Why not come together and check these state governors? Yes, it is good to check the president at the national level, because a lot, we have oftentimes talked about most of the policies he has picked up that are not really working well, particularly around the energy sector, from fuel to electricity down to the dollar and whatever. We have always criticized these things. But again, go back to the state. That's what, and again today, if you go, every state governor you see is mopping up dollar from the market, because he feels it is important for him to hold dollars.
Is that an allegation you can prove?
It's an allegation, and it can be proven at any level, because I'm not the only one saying it. A lot of people have said it. The moment there's allocation from the federal government, the dollar shoots from 26 to 30.
But also, to point out the concerns of these governors, we've seen them meet severally. The most recent meetings were in Kaduna, where they also expressed their dissatisfaction with the state of insecurity, especially in northern Nigeria, for instance, and how they feel like enough can be done, enough needs to be done, because the federal government is in charge of the armed forces and by virtue of that, to extension, the security architecture, which is greatly being controlled by the center. Do you also fear that while they do have a lot that they need to do to get the job done, their hands are also tied in so many instances where there's only so much that they can do, but it doesn't rest entirely on their shoulders?
But particularly about the security aspect we are talking about, these Northeast governors can come together and form a security architecture. If the Northeast cannot do it, the 3 states in the Northeast that today have been disturbed seriously by Boko Haram and bandits, Borno, Yobe, and
but
Adamawa.
You still have to, I mean, you are an ex-military man yourself, right? You understand the constraints around armament. It's one thing to form these, ad hoc or non-state security architecture groups. It's another thing to arm them, isn't it? Because what you're dealing with, the threat you're dealing with, is a well-armed, well-oiled criminal underworld that is going head-to-head with not just the military, but any other security you put in front of them.
If you put security aspect around, if you center security around arms, you are getting it wrong.
But it's a significant.
It's significant, but you are getting it wrong because you can fight it without the arms. Just like the case of Niger Delta, I talked about. If the effort of President Olusegun Obasanjo to establish the Niger Delta Development Commission was to engage the youths so that they go off the pipeline and allow IOCs to maximize production, and Nigeria would generate better revenue. Now, if Adamawa State on its own today, for example, or Taraba State, or any of the northern states, the state governor can come up with a well-structured security system that to take care of every stakeholder. Students will be part of it, marketers will be part of it, traditional rulers will be part of it, and he will say, look, I want a database. I want a database of every individual in my state. Nobody should be left out. The state governors can handle this. You don't need the federal government to do it for you. It means everyone will be accounted for, and anybody that is not on this database, there's question on that person to be answered. These are simple things that state governors can do, and with that, every community, people get to know each other. I know you, you know me, because we have been properly counted. We know each other. If there is a foreigner, we know where he's coming from. We can raise questions. What are you coming to do here? We don't need a gun to do that. So when you want to look at security issues with gun, when it goes very bad, that the insecurity is causing, danger to the extent of injury or death, now you can begin to think of how to repel.
Isn't that what we're mostly dealing with? That I understand the non-kinetic aspect,
yes,
but the kinetic aspect has been of great impact, isn't it? When you talk about the Boko Haram question, when you talk about the banditry, when you talk about the recent Lakurawa question, right? Armament is a significant part of it, because you have the NSAK who, to some extent, are a good part of the solution, but at a very micro level, right? But if you look at the problem holistically, whether at a regional level, that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and the governors are one part of that solution, not the whole part.
And that is what the collaboration seeks to address. Now, if they come together, collaborate, and say, okay, look, what we need to assist the federal government, okay, we can make it a contributory system. Federal government, the mechanism needed to address insecurity around arms and ammunition, structures in different positions around the six states, particularly for example in the Northeast, will cost X amount of money. And we are willing to contribute, because we know if we solve this security issue, our children will go back to school. When we solve this security issue, our farmers will go back to their farms. When we solve this security issue, our herders will go back, with their activities. Now, it means this thing is primary to us. If it will cost you X amount of money, federal government, we are willing to come halfway or even 60%, because we are the beneficiaries. Maybe over time, since it is the duty of the federal government and we are to complement, maybe over time, whatever we have contributed, you find a way to compensate us. But at the moment, this thing will cost ₦1 trillion, and the 6 state governors are willing to come with 600 billion, for example, to support the federal government just to solve this insecurity issue, because when farmers goes back to the farm, it means the following year, the northeastern part of Nigeria will produce sufficient food to feed the 6 states and even extend their hand to the neighboring states. And their children that are at home will go back to school, meaning in the next 10 years, they have addressed the out-of-school children that will eventually, if not treated, worsen the banditry and, the insecurity issue. Now, it means this is important and it should be treated as such. So, if we cannot start looking at insecurity this way, the state governors will take the responsibility and liaise with the federal government, make it a collaborative effort. Governor Nasir El-Rufai, I remember, have done a tremendous effort during his 8 years as governor of Kaduna State to rally around the northwestern governors to see how they can fight this issue of banditry and cattle rustling. He did his best. Perhaps he was not getting the right, support from his.
Do you think there's a lot of lip service in terms of delivering the dividends of democracy, as we like to say, from the governors? Because we do see them talk a lot about the problem. We do see them come together occasionally to show solidarity and to also rally themselves to speak with one voice about what the challenges are and what they think should be done about those challenges. Do you think there's a lot of lip service?
Lip service, 100%, Talba. Sometimes I feel ashamed to even identify myself with another governor in Nigeria. Let me tell you this. What happened to Governor Zulum in Borno State? If what happened to Borno State, if you remember the previous disaster, that virtually displaced everybody in the city,
the flooding?
The flooding. If a northern governor, a neighbor to Governor Zulum, will go to Borno State and see the extent of damage and shamelessly will contribute 100 million naira, I don't think our northern governors are ready to help and ameliorate the situation that is facing us in the northern Nigeria.
You don't think there's solidarity?
What is solidarity?
Yeah.
What I expected, okay, let me tell you, common sense. Maybe it's on common sense, not common sense, as Akpabio said. Yeah. On common sense, if Yobe State, Bauchi State, Gombe State, Adamawa State, keep Taraba because Taraba is far away from Borno State. If these 4 states alone, they are all bordered with Borno State. If these 4 states will individually approach Governor Zulum when this flooding, devastated his people, and say, okay, look, Adamawa State is closer to you and Yobe State. We have brought cars. We are going to arrange IDP camps. We'll make it. We'll put electricity. We'll provide water for them. Give me 30,000 or 40,000 people. Let me support you until you are able to come back to your feet. You can take over your people back.
But you would say that in terms of disaster management, for instance, that particular incident has generated billions of naira for the state.
Billions of naira.
That is enough to address the question. I mean,
now what I'm saying, billions.
All of these state governments that you did say are governments are some of the poorest governments in terms of financial viability.
Now
in
the support is not just. It doesn't matter, Talba. It doesn't matter. It's out of the little you have that you share.
Yeah, you're saying 100 million naira is disappointing.
It's disappointing because I mean,
those same states have their own problems that they need to solve.
They have their own problem.
Right. Schools that have not been fixed, roads that have not been built, all of these things. I mean, governments are not a charity organization.
It's not about being a charity organization, but we are talking about collaboration, and we are talking about looking at things together, to work together, and then solve a problem. Now, and I am telling you, if they cannot even look at one of them who has been, badly devastated and support him for the time being to put himself together, how then do we expect that these guys will sit down individually and look at it that, look, we need to come together. This issue of insecurity, I want to dedicate my next year budget. Let me discuss with all the stakeholders and see how we can put 60% or 40% or 30% to insecurity and so percent to agriculture. Because if we can't address insecurity, virtually nothing will work in the state. But we need to come together, the 6 states, and put this thing, as a model. So if they don't see each other as you need my help and let me support you, how then will they come together and look at things at the center? Right. And that is my point.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the messaging of the Arewa Consultative Forum's communique. I mean, clearly they've mentioned a variety of issues that resonates with people. It's like we're beginning to sound like a broken record when we talk about what is not working in this country, because people have become overly familiar with the problems, with the gaps, and what is required to fix them. Give me your take on how the rest of the country is going to interpret this, especially with the controversy around the 2027 presidential election. How do you think the rest of Nigeria is going to interpret the Arewa Consultative Forum's message? I mean, the original communique and everything that is said about the Tinubu administration.
Whatever they have discussed in that communique is not in isolation to other Nigerians. Is something that is generally felt by every Nigerian. Right. Because food is not just scarce for, like I said, for Northerners. It's scarce for everybody in Nigeria. Right. Okay. So it's not a matter of, and me saying 2027 should be left aside and let's allow it to define itself, because you now, deviating from what is important. What is important now is how do we even feed Nigeria? Talba, how do we feed Nigeria? And it's one of the things the Arewa Consultative Forum discussed in that communique, because there is hunger. Very important now is hunger, and a nation. And even President Obasanjo, when he said we are gradually tilting to a failing state, he said it because one of the reasons you call a state failing is when citizens cannot feed themselves.
Right. It's safe to say that we're preaching to the choir when we talk about some of these problems, because they've been around for quite some time, and the situation is being exacerbated by the current state of affairs. I believe we have Professor Tukur Muhammad Baba, the National Publicity Secretary of the Arewa Consultative Forum. Now we've been struggling with the connection, and I do believe we have Prof at the moment. Prof, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to have you. It's been quite a very busy day, I can imagine, or busy week for you and the rest of the stakeholders in the Arewa Consultative Forum. Talk to me about this controversy, how you got around it, and what you think the impact of your message to the nation is going to be.
Thank you very much for having me. I don't know what controversy you are talking about, but there is, let me go back and give you a background. On this week, especially on Wednesday, the Arewa Consultative, the National Executive Committee of the Arewa Consultative Forum met in Kaduna. It was addressed by our chairman with a lot of members in attendance. I think what came out was some of the comments by the chairman, Mama Mike Usman, which was carried by the press. And let me say that this was not an official position of the meeting, arising from the meeting. As you know, a press release has gone out today to dissociate the association, because what came out first was, well, let's say his personal opinion. However, I want to go back to the communique issued at the end of the meeting, and it was given to the press and carried in the press as well. But of course, it was overshadowed by the controversy with the release of the chairman's comments, which, like I said, were personal. I can, if you want, if you allow me, I will go straight to the communique.
Go ahead, Prof.
Basically, it's a routine meeting that we have every 3-4 months, about quarterly, and to review activities since the last meeting, which we did. And of course, at every meeting, we appraise, we look over the affairs of the country within the context Arewa and how it has fared in the last quarter or so. And we issued a statement saying, well, some of the fundamental issues have remained: insecurity, economic challenges, out of school, education, and so on. And we went ahead and offered our view on how the government should go about it. We called also on individuals that this, the situation of education, the situation of skill acquisition and challenges of livelihoods are not just for the government, it's for every concerned elite, whether in government, whether in private sector, religious and community leaders. Everyone should put their heads together and let's see what we can do. And of course, the number one issue for us was security and the state of insecurity. As you know, yeah, there had been some improvement here and there, but of course the challenges are enormous. And we took into consideration also the fact that the insecurity situation is dynamic. It has been dynamic, evolving with new groups here, new miscreants emerging and posing the same challenges to our existence. Therefore, the meeting saw it as a major national security issue that must not be toyed with like we did in the past. We advise that this is the time to get hold of the situation, to dominate and to ensure that any new group does not threaten the security of communities and thereby the security, the national security itself.
Okay, yeah, Prof, appreciate the recap there. And I think these issues that you've raised as part of the communique are an all too familiar conversation that we've been dealing with for quite some time now. But also, just to be very clear, you talk about how SA and Mamman Mike Usman's comments were personal, but was it an off-the-record statement that the media, unfortunately reported on? Plus, is there a chance that that is reflective of what the forum thinks?
No. Usually you see the Arewa Consultative Forum meets and a lot of discussions go on. But of course, resolutions are taken. And usually the way we address issues to the public is to issue a communique. His speech was made at the conference, but the speech was not given before or after. Before. It was not vetted by the executive. It was a speech he brought and read to himself, and of course, he distributed it after the speech. But of course, the distribution was just by the way, because the press were there, they recommended it. But of course, usually, and the press is aware, once we get into plenary, we excuse the press, and then after the meeting, there is a summary. And this was exactly what happened yesterday. We addressed the press. We gave them copies of the communique, which reflected resolutions, not opinions, resolutions taken at that meeting. But of course, like I said, and we don't blame you, the press is after sensationalism. What probably the chairman said was more juicy, quote unquote. But like I said, the official channel of communication after a meeting is the communique or the press release that is signed by the relevant official of the forum, which was what we did yesterday. It's quite unfortunate that his comments overshadowed the actual official communique as read to the press yesterday.
Right. Prof, just before I let you go, one question, very key one for that.
As such, it was not even discussed.
Right. Okay. For some people, the damage has been done slightly, but on the issue of what is actually happening, you talk about insecurity, you talk about out-of-school children, what's happening with the economy, and so on and so forth. A lot of people would say, if you take a deep look into the mirror, you realize that part of the problem is homegrown, so to say, and you have 19 governors that could equally have solved a significant part of the problem. Why is this focus on the center? What would you like people to know about how you're sending this message to the center, but also reflecting it to the home front and what the governors need to do, because we understand that over 200 billion of UBEC funding has not been accessed by mostly northern states when it comes to funding education, and the gaps are too numerous to mention. What do you have to say about that very quickly, sir?
Our address, our communique addressed exactly that. We made it clear that the state governments are part and parcel of the solution because they are on ground. And there is a specific recommendation arising from the meeting calling on the state governments, one, to make sure that all their plans in the health sector, in education, approach to security are coordinated so that no states take single steps, but rather they do it as a coordinated group. It was addressed. We also call on the state governments to take more active role and more visible role in addressing these issues, articulating solutions, consulting, and so on. I think about 2 or 3 recommendations specifically task the state governments with taking the lead in articulating this problem. Another recommendation is also for everybody to get deliberated at large, that there is a tendency for we elites to blame other people, and we said the fingers should be turned on ourselves before anybody else. And we made it very clear that solution to these problems will come from an initiative taken by those who are concerned. Everyone, not just the federal government, the state government, traditional institutions, the clergy, business community, influential people, all needs to be part of the solution. And they were clearly, this recommendation was clearly articulated in our recommendation. And there is a sentence there that says clearly, everyone in the North needs to take the initiative. And we do that within the context of belonging to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Right. Professor Tukur Muhammad Baba, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for sparing your time. I know it's been a very busy day or busy week for you, but thank you most kindly for joining us on Daily Politics tonight.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Right. All right. I believe we have the former Minister of Youth and Sports, Barrister Solomon Dalong, who is also able to join the conversation. Barrister, thank you for your patience. I understand the connection has been rather tricky from the get-go, but thank you for staying around. Let me just get your 2 cents on, what is happening right now. It's clear that everybody has an opinion about what is going wrong about this country. You're one who is not shy of sharing his thoughts and opinions about this one. What do you make of this lamentation that is, taking hold of the entire country? You've heard the Arewa Consultative Forum's position. Where do you stand on the state of the nation?
Well, the state of the nation is currently quite chaotic. And, it is at a historical point where Nigerians have never been back this way. But the lamentation of the Northern Elders, the Arewa Consultative Forum, is part of the national lamentation by stakeholders. But I think it is time we discontinue lamentation and be more proactive in holding public officials accountable. Because this lamentation, in my mind, is unnecessary. And most of the great minds that gather there would have had the opportunity of either being out of service or out of service. So I completely believe that the Arewa Consultative Forum as a social-cultural group should do more than just issuing communique after meetings. They should galvanize the stakeholders and confront public officials headlong to draw their attention to be more accountable instead of these flippant statements they make misleading people. You cannot have a national security advisor coming on air and making a very reckless statement saying, oh, the security situation between Sokoto and Gusau has improved. And a professor from Udus was tempted to believe him and took the roads. And he was murdered in cold blood by bandits. And he came up again. He came up again not too long.
Yeah, Barrister, I can hear you. Please go ahead. I think we're having a bit of a challenge with the connection. But in a minute or two before we wrap up, because we're completely out of time, you talk about how this has become an academic exercise. What else can a group like Arewa Consultative Forum do to galvanize that support or call to action that you're alluding to?
The Arewa Consultative Forum should serve as a fulcrum of connecting the elected representatives at the national level, the governors at the state, the traditional rulers, and other key stakeholders to be able to hold elected officials accountable by presenting some of these lamentable reports they have been lamenting on the press and media only. That's the best way to go. You call a meeting of northern stakeholders. You invite the governors, engage them, let them give account of so far they've been able to deal with these existential threats. And then you do the same with officers elected at the national level. But I want to disagree with the first speaker who was trying to misrepresent why the center becomes of great concern. We practice a federalism where the center is stronger than other federating units. So that's the more reason why Nigerians will always point their fingers direct to the center. So issue of the subnational government, the policies that has inflicted on toll hardship on Nigerians, that we are now facing excruciating hardship, was not initiated by the state governors. It was an unguided statement of the president, subsidy is gone, that plunged the country into this state of commerce. So we should call a spade a spade.
Unfortunately, Barrister, and I have to apologize for this one, we were unable to kickstart the conversation with you as planned because of the failures of the network quality. But I get the feeling that we'll get another opportunity to circle back on this one and perhaps provide an even broader assessment. But thank you most kindly, Barrister Solomon Dalong, for staying on and for giving us your short and brief analysis on this very important conversation. Thank you most kindly. Honorable Nurudeen Hammanyero, unfortunately we're unable to circle back to some of the questions, but thank you as always for availing yourself and for, of course, providing us with that useful analysis of the state of the affairs in the country. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics. All right. That is all we have for you on the program tonight. We'll be back tomorrow live at 8 p.m. for a special edition where you get to be a part of the conversation. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for your time and company. We'll see you soon.